Hello, hello, everyone. Just taking a moment here to allow everybody to get on the call and attach their audio and all of that. All right. We have a few here. So thank you, everyone. Everyone can hear me? Yes? Okay. Thank you for taking time today to join us. Today we're hoping to just have a conversation really about ideas around attracting talent to your school. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Camille. I'm the executive director of Needle Marketing. And when we do these calls, if we just ask that you keep yourself muted, and then if you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. If you have any questions as we're going along, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will address them, as we go or at the end. So anyway, I'd just like to introduce Camilla. She's our community manager, and she's going to be kind of spearheading the conversation today.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much, Camille, and thank you so much for everyone who joined. I think I see a few new faces. Just letting you guys know that these town halls are always free to join, and we have them weekly, and we discuss all sorts of Montessori leadership topics. So if you ever see a topic that you might want to join in on, feel free. Or if you have any suggestions, also let me know, because we build these town halls around your needs. And lately, a major request has been the staffing problem that a lot of schools have been having. So it's become increasingly difficult to find Montessori trained guides for Montessori schools, assistants, guides, head teachers, and that there's a lot of factors that kind of play into that. I put together a small presentation with some staffing strategies, and then I'm hoping that we can really just exchange ideas, because I know that it's great that we have Montessori leaders from kind of across the US, so different states, different cities that are all gonna have great new ideas that we can exchange, hopefully help each other. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and feel free to stop me at any point to ask a question or to make a comment. All right, and let's go ahead and get started. So we're here today to talk about attracting talent to your Montessori school. And we've called it this because unfortunately, there's nothing that we can really do as a company or as a community really to kind of impact the training centers. The ultimate problem lies in the fact that there are very few training centers in some areas. They tend to be in bigger cities, and that requires people who wish to be Montessori trained to get up and move to those cities, which can kind of be costly or expensive. So ultimately, unfortunately, we can't do anything to change that. And as we all know, Montessori training is really difficult to do online, so that's not really an option. So what can you do to actually attract talent to your Montessori school? Let's dive into it. So we're going to talk about first addressing the guide shortage, how you can utilize your school website, how you can browse career and employment page. We're going to also take a browse, diversifying your recruitment channels, job descriptions, interviewing, and Q&A. So let's go ahead and dive into that. So as I mentioned, there are many schools out there that are struggling to find trained guides. I know this because as a community manager, I get all sorts of requests from you guys as to what to talk about, and this has been by far one of the most requested topics of conversation. I just want to let you guys know that you are not alone in this. So as I said, there are several reasons why. The first one is that training centers are far and few between. Montessori training is expensive. So that's a huge obstacle for many people who may want to be Montessori trained guides. There are scholarships available, but unfortunately not for everyone. Again, there's not a great online option for training, especially this past year. We've seen a lot of people just not being able to get the hours in the classroom that they need in order to complete their training, which has made the shortage even worse. But unfortunately, you need to be in person with the children in order to actually get the experience that you need, of course. Also, many students who are interested in pursuing a career in education may not know enough about Montessori. They may have preconceptions that Montessori is for wealthy children. It's not accessible to everyone. They may just not know enough about it, and that's why they will choose the public school route instead. So it's great to kind of get people aware of what Montessori is, the philosophy of it, and that it is an option for a career path. Also, many students do opt for the public school route because it ensures benefits, which some Montessori schools offer their employees, but not all Montessori schools, because most of them are private schools. They're not able to offer things like health insurance or things like that to their guides. So that also becomes kind of a factor in the decision making of somebody who's going into education. So like as I said earlier, unfortunately, these things are difficult to change, but there are still strategies you can adapt to help staff your school. So first and foremost is utilizing your school website. It doesn't cost you any extra money to actually have a career or employment page on your website. Also nowadays, not only parents are looking for schools via your website, but also people who are looking for jobs are going to be looking at Montessori schools in their area, schools in their area if they want to work in childcare. So it's a great way to kind of offer them a place to read more information about working at your school. It's a great way for trained guides to find you. I guarantee you, if there is Montessori trained guides in their area, the first thing they're going to do is Google Montessori schools with AMS or AMI accreditation in my area. And that's the first places that they're going to try to contact and look for work. You can also include as much information as you would like on your website. There's no word count limit. When you're posting for jobs on LinkedIn or Indeed, those types of job search websites, they do charge for the length of the job posting sometimes. Guess what? On your website, there's no limit. You can control the amount of content that you add on there. You can edit it whenever you want, and you can make changes quickly and easily. You have full control there. Those that are seeking employment can discover more about your school directly through your website. Wouldn't you want an employer to, somebody who wants to be your employee, to have a great first impression of you? If you have a great website that talks about your school mission, has pictures of your school, your community, they're already kind of getting that first step into what it's like to work in your school. So having a great school website is also a huge asset for finding good employees. You can also include automations that make it super easy to apply. In my experience, a lot of people who are looking for work nowadays are applying to many, many jobs all at once. I know because I have a lot of friends who are young, who left college, and they're probably applying to 10s or 20 jobs per day, just desperate to get a response. When this happens, it's the best thing to do is have a very easy way for people to send in their resume. The easier it is, kind of the more likely they are going to do it. If there's a lot of steps for them to apply to your school, if they have to write a very lengthy cover letter, answer a bunch of fields about their age, their social security number, all of that can come later. Just have it ready so that they can submit their resume and you can contact them, and everything can come from the interview process and on forwards. All they want is that initial contact. You can include automations to make this even easier. When you create a career page on your website, you want to keep it simple, informative, and to the point. List which roles you have available. So if you don't have any roles available, just simply state no current openings, but we are taking resumes always. Or if you'd like to know more information about when a position might come available, contact us. Summarize what's required and expected of each role. So once you do list the role that is available, quickly make a bullet list point of what is expected of that role, what skills and qualifications are expected. Include your school's mission in your career or employment page as well, because again, your school mission, ultimately, you want all of your employees to work towards that mission with you. If it connects with someone who's applying, then they're already feeling that connection with your school. So you want to make sure you have that on your page. And I'll show you some examples that do this really well. Include information on how to apply, or better yet, just have an automated form. Like I said, the easier that you make it to apply, the more likely you'll actually get applications in a higher number. And if you have a higher number of applications, you get to be a bit pickier. You get to kind of select the best person for your school. So make it easy, at least in that initial stage. So let's go ahead and look at some great examples. So these are all Montessori schools that have had their websites done by Media Marketing, and they have requested to have a careers or employment page. Let's start off with Montessori, a Sandwich Montessori school. And let me know if you guys are still seeing my browser here. It's going to take a little while to load. And Sandwich Montessori School has a fantastic website overall. And always your career or employment page should be under About. If you have an About section on your navigation bar, and here you can see there's careers. So the first job that they have here is their head of school. They have a who we are or mission statement, which is really well written. They're talking a bit about the role, the responsibilities, what they offer. And here you also see a very simple automated form of how to apply. So it's simple as 4 fields. They have their first name, last name, email, and they can upload their resume. They're not asking 5 million questions. They're not asking enter your address, phone number, email, why do you want to work here? That can come later. The first step is just easy, apply, submit your resume, and then you can move forward from there. So this is a great example of a good careers page. Also, if I'm looking for a job at the school, or if I'm thinking of applying for this role, I'm going to browse through their website, look through their programs, look through their community, and they have a great website here that lets me explore and get to know them a bit more. So I really like what they've done there. Let's look at another example, and that's Casa de Mir Montessori School. I believe that they opted to do a career page as well. And you'll also find it under the About on their navigation bar. Now, they've got just, I don't think, instead of having all of their roles up forward, for a list of available positions, please fill the form below. You're welcome to send us your resume and be considered for a current and future open position. Again, you see the automated form, which is very short and sweet so that people can apply. They can check out the school, they can learn more about it, and if they decide that it's a good fit for them or they'd be interested in having a position there, they can send in their resume. So this leaves it quite open. Again, they're taking advantage of the fact that they can have a careers page on their website. The next one and the final one that I'm going to take a look at is Montessori Center of Our Lady, and I believe they've opted to call it an employment page. You'll also find it under the About section here, employment. Again, they're leading in with kind of a mission statement, so you can kind of get to know the kind of school that you're going to be working for if you decide to apply. And then they go straight into the roles that they have available. A great summary, bulleted points of what you'll need to have in order to fill this position, performance duties and demands, as well as more details, which are really great to add, hourly wage and information like that. Then if you scroll down to the bottom, they have more job requirement information. And of course, here you have the contact information form and the automated form where they can, again, attach their name, email, message, and upload a resume, and then schools can get in contact. So ultimately, the point I'm trying to make here is that having a good website page for employment, specifically for careers, is going to help you attract talent to your school and get people to reach out to you more. This brings me to our next topic, which is diversifying your recruitment channels. I think that as a head of school now, or as a school administrator, you've kind of also had to take on the role a little bit, especially in this past year where it's been really difficult to find guides, of being a recruiter for your school. So it's become less of a case of guides coming to your school and more of you having to come to the guides. And that means you have to know where to look and where to nurture that talent, where to spot people that will be great guides, and make sure that, you know, they come to work for your school. Oh, I think I skipped one of these. All right. There are countless ways you can reach out to new talent and make sure you are posting these opportunities in more than just one place. You don't want to limit yourself. So let's go ahead and go through a list. Oh, I think I might have skipped. I don't know why my clicker is going a lot faster than my apologies. All right. So have you been advertising a job role for your school for months on Indeed and haven't gotten any school leads? If so, it might be time for you to diversify your recruiting channels, find various places to advertise your roles. Yes, Indeed and LinkedIn work, but make sure you are using as many areas as possible to advertise positions in your school. So here are just some ideas that we threw together. Of course, feel free to comment any in the chat or unmute yourself if you have additional ideas that have worked for you. Publish job openings in local community newsletters. If your local neighborhoods have any kind of newspapers or newsletters or magazines that allow people to post job listings, please utilize those if you think that it's going to be a good way for you to reach out to guides in your area. Post job openings on Montessori sites such as NAMTA, AMI USA, and AMS. They do have a place where people can look for schools and where guides can look for schools and schools can look for guides. So it's really a great tool to utilize, especially if you want to find an AMI specific guide or an AMS specific guide. Attend career fairs at local high schools. And I said high schools as well as colleges because, again, a lot of people I think that want to go into education may not know enough about Montessori in order to pursue it as a career. They may have seen the name. A lot of people are familiar with it, but don't actually know what a career in Montessori looks like. What it would be like. Like I said earlier, there are some misconceptions that Montessori is a private, expensive form of education, and that's not necessarily the case. So go ahead and educate people about Montessori. Say, you don't have to be in the public school system in education if you don't want to. There are other career paths for you. Let people know that Montessori is an option for education training. I know that when I went to high school, the public school system was really on top of people who wanted to pursue education. And I didn't hear anything from Montessori schools reaching out at that age. So it didn't come to a surprise that my friends who did choose to go down the education route went straight into public school education. That's where they had a lot of support. And it seemed to me that Montessori schools just were absent in that space. So don't be afraid to reach out to those younger students. This is another great one, is to scout parents that dedicate a lot of time in your school community. And I think you really have to develop an eye for the right parents, because not all parents would be the easiest to transition into a guide position at your school. But you might have a parent who's really, really dedicated to Montessori. They really want to maybe pursue a career. They've come to love it. And you also already know them as a family member in your school. So you already know them on a deeper level than you would just somebody walking through for an initial interview. So it could be great to kind of scout those parents out, show them a pipeline, have a pipeline, say, you know what, if you ever want to work at our school, these are the steps you need to take, and we'll be happy to hire you as part of our team. So yeah, show them the steps that it takes in order to have them on as a staff member. Join Montessori Facebook groups for leaders and guides. We have our Montessori Thrive Facebook group. Please, if you aren't on there already, join us. We're always sharing leadership tips. Get in touch with talent online. Most of our Montessori Facebook group leaders are administrators. Every now and then we get guides who want to transition into administrators. It's a great place to connect. There's lots of Facebook groups as well that you can advertise jobs for guides. Not all of them. Please make sure you read the rules of the Facebook group, but some of them, they will let you post advertisements. Don't wait for applications to fall on your laps. Recruiters have to recruit. That's why it's a kind of a full-time job. Recruiting is a full-time job for some people. Search for guides with Montessori accreditation on LinkedIn and reach out to them personally. I think from somebody who's active on LinkedIn quite a bit, there is a huge gap in the Montessori space that isn't being fully taken advantage of. I think a lot of schools could have a LinkedIn profile. You can reach out to people who have qualifications or interests in early education. You can write them a message, be like, have you ever considered Montessori as a career path? We offer opportunities to come into our classroom as an assistant teacher, any message like that, it's free to do. It's free to reach out to people. So yeah, I definitely think utilizing that space and actively recruiting and searching for people who have the right qualifications in your area is going to help you kind of close that gap. Also, use social media to promote job openings. Again, this is another free space for you to utilize. It doesn't cost you money to post about a job opening on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can do that for free, so it never hurts. It's great for finding younger talent as well. Especially Instagram and Twitter is great for people who may just be starting in their career, and those are people who might be with you for a longer amount of time. So it's great to use those tools. All right, so there are countless ways you can reach out to new talent. Make sure you're posting opportunities in more than just one place. If I missed anything, if anyone has any additional comments or ideas, feel free to drop them in the chat. The more ideas, the better. It never hurts to go out there, actively recruit in as many places as possible. Next up, have great job descriptions ready. You probably already know this, but if you don't, it's important to really have great job descriptions ready and to update them every now and then to make sure they're current and accurate. Having strong job descriptions for your school's available role will help you find the perfect fit. Every Montessori school is unique and offers its own working environment and culture. So ultimately, you are going to be the best author when it comes to describing job roles that you're offering. But maybe you need a place to start when it comes to good job descriptions. Here are a few tips for kind of, if you're starting off clean and you need somewhere to start, here are some great tips. First, review job descriptions for the same role. Look on Indeed, on LinkedIn, on AMI, AMS, other school websites, and kind of get a feel for what they're doing, what they're advertising for that role. What skills are they looking for? What qualifications are they looking for? That can give you a good basis as to what you can then write for your school. Ask for advice on a Montessori community forum or group. We have a great forum as well, or Facebook group where you can ask questions on this. I know that job descriptions have been requested in the past and are available in our collection. There are Montessori leaders that have years of experience creating job descriptions. You can always ask them for advice. If you're new to administration or new to hiring, definitely ask for some guidance. There's people who are willing to help. And again, like I said earlier, check out the Montessori Thrive Resource Exchange. We do have job descriptions there. We have templates that you can, of course, download. You can make tweaks for them to suit your school and your specific needs. We've got basic job descriptions for assistants, guides, primary guides, toddler guides. So you can just take those and make tweaks rather than starting from scratch. It could take quite a bit of time to do that. So if you need help, there is help. Also, another part of staffing that I think gets overlooked, especially when people are stressed or overwhelmed with staffing, is having a hiring plan in place. You really want to think about what you want your hiring process to look like from the recruiting process. So where are you going to be recruiting for these jobs? Where are you going to be interviewing? What is your interviewing process? What is your hiring process? And what is your onboarding process? Having an overcomplicated and drawn out hiring process can actually have a negative impact on your staffing efforts. As I mentioned earlier, there are people who are looking for jobs that may be interviewing at several places. So if they have, day-long interviews at 5 different places, that's 5 days of their time. They're going to automatically just shut down and not want to do a few of them. So have something that's reasonable, but also that gives you enough time to get to know the person to see if there would be a right fit. So yeah, having a clear and organized hiring process can make the hiring process easier for both parties. So not just for them, but for you as well. You really want to develop a strong hiring plan. Call it a blueprint of some sort. And kind of keep that on file for whenever a position opens up at your school. What would you like the recruiting, the interviewing, the hiring process to go like? How many interviews do you plan to have for each role? How many rounds? There might be an in-person, there might be part of observation as well as a big part of hiring someone in the Montessori space. Make sure they're able to take the time to do that. So from the first interview, you should tell them, well, the next step would be observation, and then after that we're gonna do another face-to-face interview, and then after that we're gonna have you meet our staff, etc. So make sure that they kind of have an idea. I see something came in the chat. Always check references. This is critical. Yes, Mary Lou, always. I think that especially in the Montessori space, that's a great point. Having good references. You want ultimately a staff that has good character, that's reliable, that's loyal, and that people have had a good experience with. So definitely a good point. Check references as part of your hiring plan. Another point is there a written element to your hiring process? I know some schools will have this as part of their hiring process, notify them of this, kind of say, oh, we want you to write about your experience with Montessori or why you've chosen Montessori as your career path. I see another chat. An internal referral program is a great tool for schools to encourage current employees towards rewards and to refer qualified Montessori candidates. Thank you for sharing that, Alyssa. Definitely agree with that. Having an internal referral program of any sort in your school is a great way to find reliable staff members and employees. So thank you for sharing that. A great way to do this as well is create a checklist of must-haves. Maybe this is an onboarding checklist, things that any employee at your school must have, such as CPR tests, background checks, etc. And then once you have that, you kind of have a clear onboarding process in mind so that each new hire can feel eased into their new role. And this is going to be my next topic of conversation. So once you've received an application that you want to move forward with, contact them and break down that process that you have developed, that your hiring blueprint plan. Let the applicant know what the interview process will entail, how long it might take, what is required of them, whether it's referrals, background checks. Maybe you want them to take a personality quiz to make sure that they'd be the right fit. Nothing is off the table. Just make sure that they're aware. And then next, after that, is onboarding. So once you have decided you're going to hire somebody and you've offered them a contract, you said we'd love to have you on our team, you want to make sure that you nurture them and you want them to feel supported from the beginning. And this is something that a lot of jobs kind of miss, especially when things are stressful. They're like, oh, just kind of adapt here. If you have any questions, just let me know. But if you do it like that, oftentimes people won't come and ask questions. They might feel like they might be intruding on you. So it's important to have a good onboarding process in place if you really want to nurture your new staff. So when you decide to hire them, make sure that they're able to ease into their new position and work environment. Have a great onboarding process that assures that your new hire feels welcome in your community. And make sure that they not only know that they can have their questions answered, but a follow-up meeting with them after maybe their first week to check in on them, rather than just say, oh, you can come with me to ask any questions. So do you need any onboarding resources? We do have a few of those on our Thrive collection. We have an onboarding checklist. Also feel free to kind of connect with other Montessori school leaders and see what they do to nurture their new staff in our forum. But we've got great resources for that. So those are just some kind of recruiting strategies, hiring strategies you can kind of put in place to help you with the staffing problem. But I'd love to hear from the community and hear about your experiences with the staff shortage. So what does it look like in the past year? Have you just not had enough applicants? Has it been difficult to do the interviewing process with COVID? We'd love to hear your experiences. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Mila, can I make a comment about your hiring plan that you mentioned?
Yeah.
Partly serious, partly in jest, but many of the schools are so desperate in getting a teacher that if they can find someone with a diploma and can walk, they're hired, no questions asked. That's the sad part.
Yeah, that it does seem to be a huge problem. And I have heard negative things as well in community forums where it's almost like the guides at this point know that there is a huge shortage, so they're kind of just gonna end up going they kind of pick whoever, I guess they're getting very selective because they know that it's kind of like they're in high demand and there's a low amount of trained guides in certain areas. So it kind of just, you know, it's become a bit of a power struggle, I know, to hire a lot of guides. That as soon as one comes along, people just want to jump on it and be like, you know what, you've got the qualifications we need. You're the only one who's come and applied properly in months, so we're going to just offer you the position. I still think it's great to have, if a hiring process maybe is not appropriate at the time being, at least have a great onboarding process to make sure that they're well settled into your school, because it almost seems like there are so little guides in so many schools that if they don't like it, if they don't like that school in the first few months, they'll just jump on to the next one. That seems to be happening in some of the Facebook groups, that they have had a lot of staffs kind of walk away from new positions if they're like, oh, something better came along for me, so I'm just gonna not commit. So maybe if a hiring plan isn't appropriate, definitely have a good onboarding plan to make sure that the new staff member is well eased into your school.
If I could make a couple more comments, if you don't mind, just my perspective in terms of how I see it. I'm not quite sure if the shortage of teachers is a unique problem in the US or if it's a global problem. That I'm not quite sure. Maybe things are different there. But the way I see it, I see this as a multifaceted problem. It all starts from basically the trainers. You know, the training, the demand for, I mean, basically the requirement for having the training of a trainer is so onerous. It's like a 5-year process that the trained teachers go through, and there is a period of time where they have to be out of town. So that's one that creates basically shortage of trainers because not too many people can undertake that commitment. So that's first thing, and because of that, it leads to shortage of training centers, because if you don't have enough trainers, then you don't have enough training centers. And so if that is the case, then people who are interested in becoming teachers have to travel somewhere else, because as you know, the year-long training requires, you know, on-site this thing, and summer training requires, you know, the summer placement in the locations where the training centers are. And so because of that, you miss out a big chunk of population that might be interested in becoming teachers, who are maybe committed to this philosophy, but they have a lot of demands where maybe young children, they can't leave town for a year or for 2 months at a time. So if that is the case, I mean, many of the teachers many of the staff members or people who are interested cannot actually go ahead and take the training, and that leads to shortage of teachers, right? So it's basically, I mean, it's not something that we can do anything as an individual school. It's a much bigger problem. One thing I feel, I think you alluded to it in your presentation, is that if the leadership, the organizational leadership like AMS or AMI would line up with local universities, the early education departments, and then maybe convince them to basically offer some understanding of Montessori education as part of their early education, that would help quite a bit. I think the only one you hear about the university is Loyola, right? In terms of that had some affiliation with the AMI. Maybe there are some others I'm not aware of. So it's a multidimensional problem. I do not know exactly what the fix is, but I mean, it just goes on and on and on for years. And I'd be interested to know how others feel about it.
Yeah, you've addressed the root of the problem, I think, Wally, and that is it's just not accessible to everyone. Peter said in the comments, we actually don't yet have a training model that mirrors what happens in a Montessori classroom. Mastery-based learning means that you master becoming consistent with skills at the pace that you can handle, not an artificial pace constructed by income models that are conventional educational approaches. Yeah, that's why Montessori training oftentimes takes longer than just a 4-year kind of educational degree where you can just automatically be a teacher in the public school system. It's much more structured. It's a different approach. And that's kind of the approach that a lot of people are familiar with. So they'll end up doing. It's more accessible. It's available at every university, pretty much anywhere if they want to pursue education. Whereas Montessori, it really has to be seeked out and people have to travel and uproot their lives. But I do agree with Wally that a great solution to kind of, I guess, break the, because it will become a cycle, would be to just make it more accessible and collaborate with more universities in the long run. But I guess that comes down to what AMI and AMS decide to do, as they're the ones who are offering the qualifications that are required of guides. So yeah, great points, Wally. And yes, I agree. I think the root of the problem is that it's expensive, it's not accessible everywhere, and unfortunately, as heads of school, that's not something necessarily that we can change. That will have to come from AMI and AMS.
Yeah, the simple example in Atlanta is that we have the largest number of Montessori schools here, AMI Montessori schools, compared to other cities. And we've been struggling to have a training center after, I think that the trainer left. We are struggling to find a center where they can offer even a city like that. And you can imagine for smaller cities how much of a bigger problem it is.
Yeah. You would think that in Atlanta, if what seems to be the problem is especially in those rural areas. So there's these big kind of gaps in America between cities where there just isn't that accessibility at all to having the Montessori training. And that's where Montessori schools that are starting there that want to grow are unable to, because they're not able to find the right talent, unfortunately, because it's just not accessible. It's a real shame because there are a lot of parents in these communities who are becoming more aware of Montessori. I think definitely an awareness of what Montessori is and how it can benefit your child has grown exponentially throughout the past few years. But it's just the fact that there aren't those trained guides that we need in order to grow fully, which is really unfortunate.
Marilu, you probably know that Lillian was the last one.
That's
that
right.
we had. Lillian Bryan was
Yes.
the last one that we had as the trainer here. After that, we really haven't had a consistent supply of trainers who could really, at any level.
You're right, Wally, and you've touched upon all the problems. They've been going on for so long. And of course, part of the difficulty is that we really want good quality. And so I think at the root of this also, on the part, at least I can speak to AMI and AMI USA, because I'm doing some work with them right now. I know that Ayize Sabator, who's the head of AMI USA, is very aware of this particular problem, which is one reason why I tuned in today. He's getting so many calls and he's getting desperate. So I know that AMI USA is looking once more at this. And so the question always goes back to, how do we preserve the purity of the program? Because that's most important. And if you fast forward and rush the training, as Peter says, this is a different kind of training. And, I go back to, honestly, in Ireland, it used to be 3 years. And I used to think that was ideal, to be honest with you. Of course, that was a long time ago, but part of the training included working with children who had special needs. And now that's a whole nother topic that our schools are looking at. Look at the number of children who have ADD or ADDHD or who have special needs of one kind. And our teachers aren't trained in that at all. And so I think, I'm not sure of the answer. I do think that more and more of us could be ambassadors and speak at local universities. We need to get out on the street and be the advocates. I think it goes down to that, because I think you're right, Wally, we need to go to the universities. I know the Montessori Training Center Northeast is affiliated with the University of Hartford, and they now have a program that includes for a bachelor's degree, as well as a master's degree. So we've got to get, it's not just Loyola. There are other training centers that are affiliated with universities, but somehow we've got to get out there and really pound the pavement and find the teachers in these colleges. I think maybe start sooner. High school. It's not much of an answer or a solution. It's just thoughts.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mary Lou. And that's that's why I said, like, definitely look at high schools and the career fairs that they're having, because I think I had so many friends who chose to go down the education path and they knew nothing about Montessori. They may have seen it and thought, oh, is that a type of daycare? They just didn't know what it was. And it's I think that if they knew and they saw how great it was for children, I think a lot of them might have opted to learn more about it, to go down that path, to investigate training centers. I just think yeah, the public school gets to them sooner, and then they end up choosing that path. And it's a huge kind of, we're missing out on a lot of potential Montessorians that way. I see Peter has his hand up. Peter is going to be our speaker next week for anyone who's going to join us. So do you have anything to say, Peter?
Mary Lou, what I like about your idea is that people make decisions on two levels, but ultimately every decision is an emotional one. The two levels that appeal to me are a lot of folks make a bulleted list of the pros and cons using this, right? Analyzing our logical, analytical mind. And what I've come to know about young people these days is that they are willing to do both. They're willing to make a logical, analytical list. And for them, the cost benefit doesn't add up these days. The cost benefit does not add up to them. But folks also make emotional decisions. And the majority of the way that we make decisions is with our heart space. So what I love about your idea is that initially, if we can inspire young people to say, this is a career path that will yield rewards, not just for who you serve, but yourself.
Yes.
That's at the level of appeal I think we need to go to. And then we need to help them start to make sense of the cost benefit, because really, how many people want to sign up for something that will essentially not pay very well and will keep them in debt for a long time? Not many people. And I think when I talk to my own kids, my daughter's 23, my son's 21, they both have chosen careers in the current moment that won't pay them well. They're both musicians. But my advice to them was this: you might as well go to college for something that lights you up so that you can put your full heart into it and see where it takes you, than to go for something that is ultimately practical, but you'll be miserable as you earn your money. So this is, I think, where we need to appeal to young people. And we need to also figure out the both and of Montessori education, Montessori training, which is how could we, my comment earlier was this idea of how could we make it so that Montessori training essentially was a mastery-based system, that when a student proves that they have mastered something, they literally test out of it, not wait until the artificial exam time of, oh, and now after 9 months, that's when we test you. Like I think we can move toward a system where people can prove that they're ready. And we ultimately have to acknowledge that which children need, adults also need, which is that adults also need a system where they can say, I've mastered this and I'm ready to be done or complete with it.
Yeah. Can I just respond, Peter? I agree with you. And I have a son who's a musician and a writer. Well, doesn't pay a lot, but in our household, we always said, follow your passion and the money will follow. That's not maybe a lot of money, but there's something more than that, which is inner fulfillment in life. And I think that one of the things that I just wanted to make sure I commented on is at the school that I ran for 45 years, I've been very, very proud of the fact that we have probably right now 18 alums who have taken training. And so that's a target audience we need to think more and more about. I get lots of emails from young people asking me about training, Montessori as a career, and so on and so forth. I mean, I can't tell you, it's just very exciting. They know Montessori better than anyone because they've been through it. So I think we need to turn to them. I think we need to go to our universities. And I was on something called the Bold Goal Committee. You might remember that. And we were looking at, there were 3 levels. What attracts people to Montessori? What sustains them, and why did they leave? Now, interestingly enough, I chose why did they leave? Because I was curious about that. Because I've done this work for so long, it continues to feed my soul. But one of the things that what attracts them is you look for the people, the same personality profiles as people who might go into the Peace Corps. They're there, they're out there. So you've got to sort of figure out what kind of people choose to be Montessori teachers. And I know that in the Bold Gold committees, they came up with a certain profile that now mind you, I don't know what's happened with that. That was under AMI and I'd love to know more, but it makes sense in a way what they came up with. The reason people left was what you just said, Peter. A large number of people couldn't make a living. And that's not right either. So we're touching upon the real deep problems as well. I said the root causes for this dilemma. I'm going to say one last thing. A number of years ago, I got a call on a Sunday night from a colleague. At that time, I was president of the Montessori Schools Connecticut, and everybody was looking for upper L teachers, as they are now, by the way. It's a huge shortage of upper L teachers, any elementary teacher. And this person called me and literally said, "Oh, Mary Lou, I'm having a heart attack." And I sort of laughed it off. I said, and she said, "No, I really am. I'm having a heart attack. I had someone lined up. School opens in 3 weeks, and that person isn't coming." And I said, "You know, Miriam, if you really are having a heart attack, please call 911. But let me just say to you, it is not worth dying. We've got to get a grip on ourselves, you know? And yes, it's awful to be left in the lurch. I had it happen to me with a toddler teacher, and I ended up teaching the toddler class, which I love, by the way. But my point being that we, you know, and I worked with a school this year. I'm consulting with a school that had the same thing. And I said, maybe for a year, you have to get a traditional teacher, but you don't close your program. You stay, you know, we as Montessorians have to stay strong. We have to be forward thinking. We have to keep our vision. But we can't throw in the towel too quickly. So I think, you know, that's where we need one another. This is why I love this community so much, that we have each other to turn to. So I want to make sure I say that.
There's one thing that might be helpful if there was a way for us to convince some universities to have some sort of an internship program for people who are undergoing, early education, for them to come and spend 1 semester at the school and get to see and work with the Montessori environment. That would be quite helpful for them to get introduced to Montessori that way.
Mm. Well, Wally, I wouldn't be surprised if as a school, probably if you were to reach out to different universities and ask, because I know a lot of universities offer internship credits, so it could be actually part of their studies. If you can kind of maybe contact the right person at a local university and partner with them and say, you know what, we do offer an educational experience for students if they want to come and see what Montessori is, and it does offer value on pedagogy, on early education, or whatever stage programs you offer. Couldn't find the word there. But yeah, outreach is important, I think, for that, because I think that a lot of students who then end up doing an internship will end up either working there or more interested in that field. So I think that would be a really good solution to this problem, breaking the cycle a bit and introducing them into Montessori from the university age.
Yeah, and I was just going to follow up on that. I mean, any school, try maybe reaching out to your local high school even and just offering a day or, a morning to come observe, or even just a talk. But, obviously seeing the classrooms in action is a lot more moving, I think, for most kids and most people. But or a job fair kind of thing right at your school, offer that, just to raise awareness about Montessori. I mean, I think if we all get out there and just work locally, then that will help raise awareness.
What we have done, Camille, on occasions is that for our summer program, we have hired like basically the seniors in high school who just kind of about to graduate, and they came and worked for the whole summer. And that way they got exposed. Now that really not, I mean, summer camps are not true Montessori environment, it's more like a camp, but at least they got something, they got to know a little bit about the Montessori program, and that again is somewhat helpful.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
We need more glass classrooms. In Portland, Oregon, were you there, Camilla? A number of years ago in Portland, they had a glass classroom right in the center of Portland, Oregon, and it was so wonderful. And people from all over Portland just stopped by it to watch the children actually working, and it was really special. So we need to do more of that.
Interesting.
You, Peter, who built that, wasn't it great? And there was and the reason I bring it up is because, as Wally said, so many people stopped by who actually didn't know a thing about Montessori, but it was beautifully set up and beautifully arranged. And who's better to tell the message than the children? And they did so by just working, doing what they do so well.
We have a few comments in the chat. I'm going to read them out from Brittany. She says, I have been posting positions on our local community and junior colleges for our on-call substitute positions, outlining the exposure to Montessori, knowing that once people become exposed to Montessori, they see the appeal to the approach. Also highlighting that we hire directly from our on-call sub list, trying to do the work not only to recruit for our school, but recruit for Montessori as a whole. We're also lucky to be located near a training center, so also working to strengthen our relationship with the training center and be a location for student teaching, and we're still struggling with hiring. Wow. Well, you are taking some great steps there, Brittany. I think that it is, yeah, wow, to hear that you're struggling with hiring even with all of that just goes to show that we're in a deeper rut than some people think. But yeah, that some great tips there from Brittany, though. Thank you so much for sharing. Peter agrees, it's very hard right now across all those sectors. Yeah, it's tough. We do have to stress the word recruiting so much. But yeah, Brittany says we're actually in Portland, Oregon.
And I will share something with you that I don't want to scare everybody to death, but it worries me. And that is, as I consult with schools, I've been talking to various people to encourage them to hang in there. But I've had several say to me, I see this as my last year. Now, their employers don't know this. They're hanging by a thread. I mean, this is due to the pandemic. And I really do worry that the shortage we're experiencing now might get worse if we don't become maybe proactive, which is why I've said in this Zoom room before, we do need to nurture our teachers a lot, because they're, and yourselves, of course. And that's the other thing. I know several heads of schools who are just burnt out, and it's September 2nd. So this has got to be a year and a way of healing, and yet we're all in that place of saying, oh my gosh, it hasn't gone away. In fact, we're dealing with something just as insidious, if not more. So we really need to support each other, don't we? Because this is a great reason. It is for the benefit of all of humanity that we do Montessori. I really believe that.
A question for you, Mary Lou. It seems to me that the AMS seems to have a little bit better time in terms of providing teachers and maybe recruitment and all that than AMI is. Is there something AMI can learn from them in terms of the model that might be, I think, some sort of a compromise that one can live with?
Wally, I hear you on that, and I don't know what that conversation is right now. I know that there are conversations being had, but here's the other thing that's really unbelievable to me. We do have something like 7 or 8, I don't know the exact number, training centers in the United States, and most of them aren't filled. And so let's look at that problem. And so I often think, how do we solve that? How do we get people into our training centers? And we have them. We may not have them everywhere we want them, like in Atlanta, the way you talked, Wally, right now. But how frustrating is it that we have training centers that only have 4 or 5 students?
It's a catch-22 because the reason they don't have it is because a lot of them are not able to travel and be there, even though they might want to. I mean, in a sense that we have had people, they were interested, but they were not going to, for whatever reason, could not uproot themselves for a year or for 2 months. So it becomes a catch-22 problem. How do you really manage that? So it almost, for this to flourish, it almost have to be done almost at a local level.
Mm-hmm.
Almost. Now, obviously you can't have it in every city, but I think, so it has to be in that sense where I think then more people will basically, until then, I think we have this problem where there are some training centers who are having difficulty finding, candidates.
So just to add to that or to comment on that pop-up training, that's interesting, Peter, is that I'm on the founding board member of Montessori Training Center Northeast. And the way in which, the reason we have it is a group of us just kept going after it over and over. It was very hard. It was not easy to get a training center, as you know, Wally, even to bring one back that had been there. But we do have it up and running. And now we've affiliated with the University of Hartford, and we have these various programs that include getting a BA and a master's and so on. So I think it can be done. And Montessori Northwest, I think, is doing pretty well, but I don't think the one in Washington, DC, WMI is, has a very low enrollment. So yeah. I don't have the answers to any of this, but somehow I keep thinking that the powers that be, whether they're an AMI and AMS, really need to pull their heads together. And I know, for one, it's my work currently at AMI, they are aware of the phone calls they're getting constantly saying, we don't know what to do. And it's really not good for anybody. So I think it's great to be able to, I will certainly communicate with Ayise about this meeting, because I know that he is really struck by wanting to get more people of color involved. He's really been very deeply involved. And I'm also work with a colleague who is on the board of the Margaret Stevenson Fund, which of course gives scholarships to teachers. And they've done a tremendous job, but it's just a big problem. It really is.
There have been many years where we seriously thought of basically moving from AMI to AMS, because we have had teachers available for AMS, could not find teachers for AMI.
Yep.
And that's and we might end up doing that if this thing continues.
Well, then that gets into the accreditation process, which I won't say too much about, but I've been outspoken about it, because then to be a member of AMI, you have to have only AMI teachers.
Correct.
And, that is a problem. And so I'm letting my own opinion know on that one. I definitely voicing my opinion, because at this point, I think AMI might be hurting themselves in that department. But I also think one of the things that training centers have to do, and it kind of speaks to what Peter was talking about, you can't learn this whole approach in a year, in my opinion. It takes a long time. And so I think there needs to be an ongoing education classes for the graduates, those who've taken the training, who can, for example, you come out of training, how do you know really how to give a parent-teacher conference? I mean, unless you've been a teacher before, that's a tough one. You know, particularly if it's fine if you've got a great little girl or boy who, you know, they do everything right. But what if you have someone who doesn't, and you need to communicate that in a meaningful way with a good strategy? That to me requires more ongoing education for our teachers.
Well,
So-
it is that, and also to me, it seems that before you become a really value-add lead teacher, you really need to be an assistant for a couple of years after you graduate, and then learn also from the job and see the regular line guide, and then become a lead teacher after that, and not off the bat start teaching from day one. Because as you said, I mean, one thing is to give lessons. The second thing is classroom management.
Mhm.
Which is the most critical part of really having an effective classroom.
This is a big topic. It really is, you know, and when I had teachers in my school, I tried to look at the fact that teachers, like all of us, are developing. And so a first year teacher is very different than a teacher in her 10th year.
Yep.
And that's where I think you can do a partnering within your school. You could have a buddy. You talked about onboarding a little earlier. I always like to have somebody who became, if you will, a big sister, a big brother to that teacher. Just for exactly this reason, Wally. It really takes a village, doesn't it?
We've just scratched the surface here.
Yeah, we can always have another town hall on this topic if you guys want. We're happy to host town halls on whatever needs to be discussed. So please let me know if this is a topic that needs to be readdressed. I'm sure with the ongoing year, as things change, if this continues to be a problem, we'll come back and reassess and maybe offer some new strategies.
Is anything in the works, Mary Lou, that regarding AMS and AMI merging? Have you heard anything at all?
I really haven't. I have not specifically about that, but so I've been recently asked to run the AMI USA 50th anniversary. And
Oh,
stay tuned for a lot of wonderful things I hope will come forward in the coming year. But because of that, I'm having an opportunity to chat with the Yise on an ongoing basis. And I know that what he's about is let's celebrate our 50 years and look forward to it 50 years more and 100 years more after that and so on. But we need teachers. And so we're talking about ways to build that enthusiasm and so on. And I'm very excited about that because I'm just passionate about this work. And I feel that our teachers need that dose of passion and that sense of it will make a difference to our society. And if ever we needed it, it's now when half the planet is drowning and the other half is burning up and all the rest of it. We really have great work to do. And I think it's up to us to continue to inspire and to excite people about this work.
That seems like a great note to end on right there.
Yeah. There's one more comment from Lubna. We are a new Montessori school in Texas and desperate about finding any teacher. Luna, where in Texas are you located? Because I don't know if I'm right or wrong on this, but I think there's a Montessori training center in Houston.
Dallas.
Dallas,
Dallas, that's what I'm thinking. Okay.
Montessori Training Center Northeast.
Yeah.
I just did my Montessori core principles course and survived.
Oh,
It was a ton of work and they're very good.
Okay.
Luna says North Austin. I can imagine in Austin there are a lot of parents who know about Montessori quite well. City name Hutto. I mean, I would suggest maybe have you reached out to the training center in Dallas? I know it's a bit of a drive, but Austin is a new hotspot in Texas. So I'm sure some people might be willing to move if it means to getting a great job at a new Montessori school. I'm sure you've already tried that. But yes, we all feel you. It's a huge challenge. And Texas is a massive state as well, so recruiting must be a little bit more tricky. It could be an 8-hour drive from one point to the other. All right, if anyone has any questions that they think of later on or wants to just connect with their Montessorians, please do so in our Montessori Facebook group. Just search for Montessori Thrive on Facebook groups, and we're there. We're always sharing information on town halls and any events that we offer. All of our events that we offer for leadership are free, like all of our Zoom calls. Next week, we're actually going to be having a conversation with Peter, who's here on the call. So he's going to be hosting our conversation next week. So we're excited about that, to have him back, and hopefully some more great conversation in the Montessori leadership space. I have a feeling this is going to be today's topic. It's going to be one that we're going to revisit. So go ahead and make a note of it, and maybe it'll be down the line, maybe later in this year or even next year, we can kind of touch on this topic again. But thank you so much for everyone who joined in on the call. I hope that you feel like you could had the opportunity to connect with their Montessori leaders and hopefully learn some new strategies. And we hope to see you back next week.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.